How did this all start? What was the first time that somebody brought something like this to your attention?
I had a long time frustration with boycotts on the right. I felt we did a really poor job with them. And a lot of times it was poor targets, poorly timed with no strategy. And so they were these short-term things that play right into the number one PR strategy of corporate PR people, which is just wait for it to blow over. And it did almost every time. And so I had long sort of had this idea of how you would run a successful boycott, right? And so when a person came to me who was a Tractor Supply employee, because they were the first company, I said, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to put this together. We're going to set up metrics for how we do this and identify companies. And if we're right here and we get Tractor Supply to flip, we are going to do this one by one through corporate America and bring corporate America back to sanity. Because here's the thing, after George Floyd, there was this massive accelerated push to the far left. So the Overton window shifted wildly in terms of what was sort of acceptable and what people considered normal. And so our job is to move it back. Well, the really common sense way to do that within sort of the broader thesis we have for changing things back to normal is you start with the companies that depend on us the most. They depend on the conservative consumer. So that was your Tractor Supply, your John Deere.
And what was their sin? What was their sin? What did they do?
In Tractor Supply's case?
Yeah.
So for that, they did a full reversal. I mean, they reversed on everything.
What was it that got? What was it that started this? Like what grabbed that employee's ire?
Yeah, so they had these, the newest version of the Progress transgender flag in the distribution center in Kentucky. They had all this woke stuff in the office here in Tennessee where their HQ is based, and I'm here in Tennessee. So it's personal to me because I shop at Tractor Supply, and I had no clue that my dollars spent at Tractor Supply helped fund pride events here in my own state where kids were exposed to sexual content. And as to your point earlier, I don't care what adults do, knock yourself out, but once you start sexualizing kids, I'm going to fight you, okay? I don't care if you happen to be LGBTQ or you're straight or you're a pastor misusing your position. If you sexualize children, I am going to do everything I can to call it out and stop it because it's inappropriate and we have attacked child innocence for too long in this country. And it's time to bring back what makes America great. And that's one of those elements of what makes America a great country was when kids got to be kids, grow up and have a beautiful sort of idyllic American youth. And if we want that to be possible again, we've got to cut this stuff out. So the company was sponsoring these pride events. They were sponsoring centers that are pro-transition for children. They were partnered with a group that was pro-illegal immigration, whose founders stated very clearly that they believed that their job was to stop deportations during a Trump presidency. These are things that are so wildly out of alignment with the customer base of Tractor Supply, it's not even funny. But as we sort of built the story and showed people all of the craziness, because there's much more, people said, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to give my money to a company that is going to turn around and spend it diametrically opposed to my values. But I'll give Tractor Supply executives credit. They did the fullest turnaround, and because they were first, I know it was extremely hard for them to do because there was a lot of unknown as to what kind of backlash they would receive from Wall Street. But you know what happened after they turned things around? Their stock went up, okay? It went down when we were going after them, went up when they changed their policies. It went viral, story all over the world where people saw a company rejecting wokeness and DEI. And then the table was set, the thesis was proved, and we went one by one through these companies, from them to John Deere, to Harley Davidson, Indian Motorcycle, Polaris, Jack Daniels, their parent company, Lowe's, Ford. You know, we've got many others, Coors just the other day, and we've got a bunch that are ready to be announced very soon. And I think people are going to be very happy with that because we're amping up here. We are building up a larger team even to continue to do this at an even higher scale.
Okay, so this employee comes to you, they tell you all this stuff that they're doing at Tractor Supply Company. You have this plan to do things differently and more effectively. Walk us through the plan.
Well, essentially, you know, you have to eliminate that first problem that we had in previous boycotts where it's like, okay, you know, we can wait this out. Well, you can't wait it out if I'm planning on dropping this information every day, well over a month, and it's all absurd and it's all stuff that people are shocked to learn, right? So we said, you know what? We need to meticulously investigate these companies, not just with our whistleblowers. We're going to go open source. We're going to look at every document they've ever filed as a public company. We're going to look at their investor relations forms. We're going to look at everything that they've ever publicly given money to. Then we're going to go look at their foundations, their 990 forms. We're going to scour through those. Then we're going to look at what the executives have done and see what they're involved with on a personal basis to build a picture for people of how far left the boardrooms have gone. Because while I appreciate we live in America, people on their personal time can go do what they want. If we find a pattern that companies that depend on right-wing consumers are companies that have boardrooms that are filled with the furthest left Democrats, well, we've got a problem, right? And so we identified all this and we built together a strategy where where this would just be a drip, 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 drip on a daily basis. It starts with one big expose, and that typically tends to get a ridiculous number of views. And then everything after that, you get 1 million here, 1 million there, 1 million there. And then there's all of these other influential accounts who take the work we've done and they spread it. And I've been very happy to just say, take whatever I do, spread it however you want, post it wherever you want. I don't need credit. I don't need money. Go do it. I want people to just understand how insane these companies have gone. And it's been very successful. I think that's the reason why companies now understand when I send them an email, I mean business. So if I email them and I say, hey, we've done this investigation, we identified these problems, but we want to make sure we do our story right. So if we're missing anything and there are some changes afoot and you guys are ready to discuss changes or you want us to hold to update this story for changes, we are happy to do so because we love a good positive story. We would rather talk about that and fixing things for the future than go and have to do a month-long campaign where we're identifying all the failures of the past. And that has been very successful. Companies are now responding to that very well because they don't want to, find themselves in the position that some of these other companies have been in where their entire customer base became acutely aware that the companies had gone absolutely absurdly insane.
So you build this dossier and then you say you're going to have this expose. In the case of Tractor Supply or anyways, are you putting this like on your website or your group, or how do you get it out? Do you find a mainstream media outlet? What's the vehicle to get it out there?
So I generally put it on my X first, but we cross-platform post on, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, all those places, so the videos will all go there. X gets the most content because there's a lot of screenshots we post too from handbooks and flyers and weird stuff that happens at company events and speakers they brought in. Like in the case of, John Deere, they actually had the lady who was the founder and creator of the 1619 Project. They had her come in. This is somebody who's explicitly far left activist, right? And, things like that will kind of keep exclusive to one platform. But, the mainstream media, I will say, has been so incredibly interested in this story. We just had actually just yesterday, the New York Times here at our office, and we had also Bloomberg doing profiles of us, and this is sort of become the norm. We've had amazing coverage all across the board from every major media outlet who can't believe we're as effective as we have been, especially with the small team we have, and we're not powered by some, like evil, shadowy source. This is all, I have a lot of subscribers on X who pay $5 a month. They support the campaign we're doing, and we use that to hire researchers. The researchers work on the projects, and we build this all up together. And this is truly a people-led movement to just bring sanity back.
So, okay, let's just keep playing with the Tractor Supply one. So you build this expose. How long does it take them to go, all right, we got to have a conversation? And are they calling you saying, all right, Robbie, uncle, we'll change it, or do they change it and then call you? But like, where's that pain point for a company, especially them at the beginning?
So it took them about 3 weeks. They were the first one though, so for them, there was a lot of unknown, and they kind of, I think my guess is probably needed to measure internal metrics and kind of see like, what does this actually mean for us? And I know that we had outreach from many different places, including customer service at a couple of these companies going, look, I wasn't familiar with you before, but now I am because our phone lines have been jammed for, well over a week and people just calling about your videos. And, in one case, they actually said, could you please have them call this other number because it would be a lot easier for us and we could still get our other customer service calls done. But when it comes to executives, I do have a practice that everything's off the record. So I don't typically, or I don't at all really discuss, kind of what happens between the executives. I can just broadly say, within a number of the companies that we have focused stories on, I have had off-the-record conversations with the executives, and the tenor of those is kind of wide-ranging. It can be anywhere from, we disagree, we go through sort of the finer details of why I feel this is not okay and why so many people believe this stuff is not okay. And eventually, in every case, we have a 100% strike rate where 100% of the companies that we have focused in on for stories have changed their policies. So eventually, we get to the right place.
And so when you call them now, when you start that conversation, is it like, oh crap, Robbie Starbuck, like I gotta, we gotta, or how? Like, I feel like sometimes it's, that scene like at a restaurant where somebody walks in and they're like, hey, do you have a table? And someone goes, do you know who that is? Like, there's a little delayed sometimes, or do they know who you are now at this point? They've all been kind of conditioned to, if we get an email from this guy, I want to know about it ASAP.
Every single one knew who we were. And I say we because we're a team. Like I know people have given me a lot of the credit, but I have a team here. They're fantastic. They're all private, so they don't really want credit. But it's a team effort, and they know, when we contact them. And I will say this very broadly. I had a conversation this weekend actually with an executive at one of these companies, and we're talking about a massive company that's going to be announcing changes very soon. And they admitted to me, they were like, I got to be honest. When we got that first message from you, we were all kind of freaking out. We thought you were going to drop a video right away, and we thought this was going to be just a disaster for the next month or two. And I said, I appreciate that that's sort of what we've incited in their minds. But the truth is, we're not after clicks. If we're after clicks and just like making money off this operation, things like that, we would just put out videos exposing the companies. We want change. And so if we can go to a great American company, or at least a once great American company, and they are going to change as a byproduct of our campaign to bring back neutrality and normalcy where everybody just gets to go to work and do their job, what a crazy concept. We're happy to have that outcome. We don't need the clicks. We want the change. We do want them to publicly address the change, though, because I think that's important to the overall momentum of changing the mood in corporate America back to one of adopting a neutral stance. And now you're starting to see some universities do this preemptively, because I think that they're also understanding, not just because of the Supreme Court case that had to do with admissions, but, just the overall environment, that it's done nothing but harm them to get overtly politicized and take political or social positions that are divisive. And so this is becoming sort of an alarming thing, not just among executives, but also among university, at the higher level, the deans and things along those lines, where they're seeing this is really maybe something that is actually a liability for us to get involved with. I think we just need to take a neutral approach. And on the overall, that's something that I think is going to end up being extremely healthy for our country, because, it's no secret I'm very conservative, but I want to see our country united too. People are not going to all agree with me. And if I want my kids to live in a united country, one of the most important elements to that is removing the division from every element of our life, because that's how we got here, is that our workplaces got politicized. Our kids' schools got politicized. Every screen that we have got politicized. And so when it's pummeling you all the time, naturally people are going to get more emotional about it on both sides. And they're going to have stronger feelings, and people get pitted into these corners where I think at the end of the day, you start to get to this point where you can't stand each other. And if we want to get back to kind of what we had in the 90s, where, if you look at Pew polling or Gallup polling, racial harmony was in a great place. People generally got along with each other. We had this kind of like happy-go-lucky spirit in America that, like, if you disagreed, you went like, okay, well, this is America, agree to disagree. And you moved on, and you could still like be a nice person. We're not there anymore. And if we want to get back there, we need to remove this divisive stuff from these different areas of our life, like the workplace and schools and the pillars of culture out there, and just get back to being able to sort of allow each individual to have their belief system and not try to destroy their life for it.
I think what's interesting about what you're doing and the way you've described this is the left wants these corporations and other institutions to tilt towards them, right? They want to do that. You, and frankly, and I agree with you on this, I think we as conservatives generally just want neutral. We're not trying to say you must have this inserted into your company or whatever. We want neutral. I want to go to work. I want to do my job. I want to make a great product or provide a great service for a good wage or whatever, help the company. They want these companies to be a tool in their agenda. And I think that's a very big difference between the sides.
You're absolutely right. I think you identified actually a big reason why, our sales pitch is very successful with executives, because if I was arguing to them, you need to adopt my positions, you need to donate to the groups I donate to, you need to support the candidates I support, we would not be getting nearly the same place, because, frankly, I won't say just as bad, but it would be close to just as bad as what they're doing now. I would argue it's worse what they're doing now because they're supporting communists. But, I think it would be something that's not healthy for our country. Healthy looks something like allowing work to just be work and people not having to worry about the divisive issues of the day while they're on the clock. And, outside of work, you want to be an activist. You want to, talk with your fellow coworker about politics. Like, go knock yourself out. This is America. Do what you want. But at work, you have a job to do. And I think that should be the focus, is providing great service and not bringing any of that stuff into work with you, because ultimately work is not about you. It's about doing a job. And I think that's the most important thing. And a lot of companies have lost sight of that, frankly.
In Ford Motors' letter to you, Jim Farley, the CEO, says that they will stop participating in the human rights campaign Equity equality index rather, and Brown-Forman stated the same thing, that it's going to end its participation in Human Rights Campaign corporate equality index survey. Was that something that you asked for, and explain why that's important?
I don't think I explicitly had to ask for it. You know, I think they've seen my commentary on it, and people are about to see some more of that in a little while. We just got a video of the president there, and I think everybody needs to see it because it makes it explicitly clear what these companies are tying themselves to, and it is absolutely bonkers. But I think they've seen enough of my coverage of it, and these people are following kind of what we're doing very closely, that they know that that's something that is going to be eliciting a positive reaction from my side of things. Because what I've argued is, because HRC is not alone, there's other, you know, sort of far left metrics, and I've just argued they need to get away from any of these metrics or scoring systems when they're pushing you in a direction that is going to overtly politicize your company. And, you know, I want you to just imagine, okay, like the HRC, they advocate for grown men to follow little children, little girls into the bathroom. They advocate for boys to be able to play on girls' teams. They advocate for children to be able to get sex changes. This is a truly radical group, okay? At their gala, again, they said Trump hates America. They framed congressional Republicans the same way. And so, you know, if you're just looking at this from a neutral zone, like eagle eye view of our country, I want you to try to imagine a major corporation aligning themselves to a group on the right who did something equivalent to that. It would never, you and I know would never happen, Sean. It would never, ever, ever happen. And if it did, there would be hell to pay for it. But the right has sort of sat by. And this goes to a very important point, Sean. We have made one very big mistake on the right. The Republican Party has made one colossal, hopefully not fatal, but possibly fatal mistake over the past decade and a half. And it's adopting the idea, celebrating the idea that we should be a silent majority, or that we are a silent majority. That is a shameful thing to be, especially, you know, for myself. My family comes from Cuba, where they lost everything to communists. And the truth is, a big reason that happened is a lot of people sat around silently. You know, they thought they were safe. And the truth is, if you love your country, being silent is not an option. In fact, there was a lawmaker in Athens way back, you know, in history called Solon. And he actually made it a law that it was illegal to shirk your responsibility to come and address controversy that had to do with the times in the state. You had to have an opinion. You could not just be silent and sit by and do nothing. You had a responsibility to your countrymen, to your country, to voice what you thought. Whether you agreed with them or disagreed with them, it didn't matter. Everybody's voice needed to be at the table. And while maybe that's a little extreme for a country like ours, I truly do believe that being a silent majority is what led us to this point in time, where you have a candidate for president in Kamala Harris, who is essentially a New Age Marxist, where really the only thing that functionally changes is in the New Age communist system, you don't need to take over the means of production because the left-wing politicians have figured out that optically that doesn't look very good. So instead, they realized, oh, you need something actually that's quite a bit simpler. You need control of the minds of the executives that run the means of production. And if you don't believe that the Democratic Party has established some version of that already, look no further than big tech, where they absolutely own them. But they don't own them on paper, but those companies do their bidding. And so that's the reality we live in. And if we want to get out of it, the silent majority needs to just say, you know what? We're not silent anymore. We are going to speak up. This group of radicals, very small group who are very loud, are no longer going to control the conversation. They are no longer going to dictate the terms under which we all live.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.